What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to talk about why tomorrow is going to be another very important day as we have some data coming out, not to mention a massive options chain for SPY. I'm also going to talk about what the news is saying about Tesla and how this could affect the share price going into tomorrow. But before I begin detail all this information, before I talk about some options chains, talk about the data, talk about the news and all this stuff for Tesla, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo with the link down below and deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks, and the offer ends very, very soon. Anyways, when it comes to Tesla, I just want to mention that Tesla is on a very, very big downtrend. Their share price is still continuing to drop, and the trend is still bearish for now. However, despite that happening, there was a falling wedge-like structure that developed for today on Tesla, and we are attempting to break out of it. So if Tesla gets a follow-through move tomorrow, we could see this thing attempts to bounce. So long as there's no new bad pieces of news, I think it's a real possibility. But in order for this to play out, I want to talk about some levels you should be watching for, what data will affect Tesla in the markets, and what the news is saying about it right now. Let's talk about all of this first before I break down the charts. So the first question is, why did the market sell off? If you guys missed my earlier video, PPI was not the best. This came out this morning. So PPI month over month was 0.6% above expectations. Core PPI month over month was at 0.3% aligned with expectations right here. Then we had core PPI year over year at 2% aligning with expectations. But PPI year over year for all items was at 1.6%. This one was hotter than expected. So what this means is that the producer price index is a leading indicator for CPI, and there's a risk of us getting another hot CPI because of this. At least that's what it should be said, theoretically speaking. And then when it comes to the way this is looking, there is a risk of another increase in inflation. So this is de-incentivizing the Fed to be a lot more dovish, to start cutting rates now. And the Fed may have to keep rates up for higher for longer. And there is a risk of them kind of announcing that they may not cut as much as they initially thought. So that's the reason why the market kind of sold off once this news came out. That's why SPY kind of came down and started trading sideways the way it did. And this led to Tesla and other stocks kind of following the trends. So you can see SPY got this push to all-time highs. Wall Street pushed it to a new all-time high in the morning, right before the data came out, because they were getting ready to short the stock up here, getting ready to start entering their shorts, start selling. And that's why we got this big sell-off and then sideways price action. But the question is, will SPY bounce tomorrow? I'll give you guys some answers in just a couple of minutes alongside Tesla. Let's continue to go over some data. For tomorrow, it's going to be Friday, March 15th. We have some more important data coming out. Watch for volatility at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's going to be 30 minutes after the market opens. We have the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Report, Michigan 5-year inflationary expectations, and more data involving inflation and such. We'll see if this causes the market to bounce or not, so watch for this very, very carefully. On top of all of this, I just want to mention that we had some earnings. I went over most of these in the morning. We had Adobe that just came out, and we have very minor ones for tomorrow. For Adobe, we actually saw the share price drop because earnings were not the greatest. So EPS was a beat, which is good for them. Revenue was also a slight beat. They've just barely met expectations. Revenue was up 11%, but net income decreased to $620 million. That's a slight decrease. Now, that's important because on top of that, for the second fiscal quarter, we're actually seeing their EPS at about $4.35 to $4.40. That is aligned with expectations, but their revenue is expected to be $5.25 billion to $5.3 billion. That is a little bit below expectations. So soft sales, despite the fact that they're preparing for a buyback, despite that, slipping sales, their sales not being the best and their overall guidance not being the strongest is why Adobe sold off. Now, for a couple more things involving the market volatility thus far, the VIX is pretty neutral right now. It's still in the middle, could go either way, but other charts are still quite bullish. They're still quite greedy. The market is still at extreme greed. So we're going to see if this continues to get close to that level or not. For SPY, I just want to remind you all that it's going to be pretty wild tomorrow. Tomorrow, we have a 3.1 puts to call ratio. We have close to 1.3 million, if not a little bit more than that, calls expiring, 1.3 million calls, and over 4 million puts expiring for tomorrow at 3.1 puts to call ratio with max pain at 490. So overall, when it comes to the way the market is moving so far, I just want to say that things are looking very interesting with all these puts expiring, and we're going to be watching to see how things change over time. Will the market makers try to squeeze shorts again? Will the market makers cause us to drop closer to max pain? We'll just have to wait and see. I do want to note the market makers love to squeeze shorts. They love to cause the market to go up to kind of hurt all these puts. So we'll see if that ends up being the case. Now, for Tesla, we got so much bad news for the last couple of days. I actually talked about all of this in my earlier videos. So what's going on with Tesla? Basically, I went over everything in a lot more details, but there was someone who passed away in one of the Teslas because they may have accidentally put the car in reverse. This was Angela Chow, so I do have condolences for her family. It's very sad to hear anything like that, and it's nothing that should happen. If anything, I really hate to hear things like that. But it's sad that she passed away in a Tesla, and there's now Tesla's getting a lot of criticism for that. There's also this news about UBS cutting their price target on Tesla right after Deutsche Bank cut their deliveries targets, and that's why Tesla sold off the way it did. Right now, other investors are saying that Tesla could continue to fall because of Elon Musk. And in order for this to turn, they basically need a real CEO. There's some people saying that about Elon Musk. Something funny is that Elon Musk made some comments in Germany. He's still there, and he basically said that Tesla should enable Dogecoin as an official form of payment for its vehicles at some point. Now, some people could say that it's a joke or whatever you want to say, but whether that's true or not, Dogecoin is up, and Tesla investors may have kind of laughed about that. That's something that Musk said. He also said Dogecoin to the moon. So if you're interested in that, that's something else that's making a lot of headlines right now. But I'm not really seeing anything else too crazy about Elon Musk. Volume was at about 126 million, a little bit above average. So we're still falling on a high volume, which is not the best of signs. On top of this, UBS gave Tesla a neutral rating. This is after Wedbush said Tesla would outperform the market, but Wells Fargo downgraded Tesla simultaneously. So UBS gave Tesla a neutral rating. Financial estimates are still strong. The price price ratio is falling because Tesla is currently relatively weak compared to the market. And Fridays tend to be green only about 49% of the time. We also see high volatility at 11 a.m., around 2 p.m. or 1 p.m., and that's when we tend to see the most volatile hours. And that's all I'm really seeing for now. We're still seeing a lot of like bad news coming out for Tesla, people trying to bash it, but eventually there's going to come a point where the bad news is becoming too extreme and Tesla needs to make a change. So for Tesla, I just want to note that I'm not extremely confident in my projections for the markets for tomorrow because of quadruple witching, but I'll still give you guys my anticipations. And the reason I say that is because there's so many options expiring, so I do expect a lot of manipulation tomorrow. We'll see if the market pushes or not. We might get a bounce or even a squeeze because of this. We'll see. So for Tesla, let's talk about Tesla first. Now, if Tesla is bearish, hypothetically speaking, you could argue that since we have this downtrend, you want to see it lose 162. If we lose that, there's 160, then 157.5 coming as support. And we could eventually just slowly make our way down towards the 155 area if we keep selling off, especially if we lose 160. If we're bullish, you want to see it basically break out. It has to hold above 162.5 and try to break past 165. If it breaks this, 167.8 to 170 is going to be our next target up here, which is where we have this wick. What do I think Tesla's going to do? Honestly, guys, with this falling wedge, even though this is a bullish looking pattern, which does suggest Tesla could try to bounce tomorrow, I can't promise that because it depends on the news. As of recently, there's so much bad news day in and day out coming out. These institutions are shorting Tesla and they're benefiting a lot from all the bad news, which works in their favor. But all they're doing is just playing a game where they just, sell off Tesla, cause it to drop as much as they can so they could buy more and then push it back up. So in this case, it's been dropping very hard. I think it is due for a bounce, technically speaking. So I think that there's a very good chance it might try to get back above 165 to 167.8. I'm hoping we do get a bounce in the markets, which could help Tesla. But just to be safe, we have to see confirmation if we could try to get back above our key levels. So we need confirmation first. Can Tesla break and hold 165? If we achieve that, it is a strong possibility we get that bounce. If not, it is what it is. But that's where I'm kind of leaning towards. I'm not super confident because of the amount of options expiring, but just to be safe, keep this in the back of your mind. What else supports this narrative is what SPY is doing. So if you look at SPY, notice this little pattern right here, right? Every time SPY falls and we form a very big wick, we do tend to see some kind of like rebound. So we had like a wick right here. We'll start actually back here. Let me go back a little bit more actually. So down here, we formed this like nice wick and then we saw a trend reversal and this thing started pushing, right? We came down a bit on Thursday, March 7th. This wick formed during the after hours and then they pushed it back up to its all-time high. Then SPY started dropping. We got a little wick. It popped a bit, then continued to fall. And then this is where these wicks formed right here, which is where we got this trend reversal. The next day, we got this big drop in the pre-market. Look at these wicks. It pushed us much higher as they were grabbing liquidity. Yesterday, SPY fell. At the end of the day, look at this sell-off on SPY. big wick formed, and then we pushed to a new all-time high during the pre-market before we started falling again. And then for today, there's a wick here, push back up, wick here, push back up, big wick at the end of the day, then it pushed back up, which makes me start to think maybe, just maybe, we might see a move to the upside and we might see the market makers attempt to squeeze shorts. Now, I'm not super convinced. I'm not going to promise this. I have to watch for confirmation just to be safe. So watch 515 to 515.6 as our resistance. If we break 515.6, we're going to be pushing towards 516.5 and eventually this imbalance at 517 and 518.25 will be the next resistance above that to 519. If we're bearish, you want to see this thing basically lose 513.5 and then 512. If we lose 512, there's going to be a risk of it falling all the way down to 509. In my opinion, we could get all the way back down here. If we lose 512, that's going to be our key support. So the reason why I'm talking about both sides is because SPY has this range. The range is going to determine which way it goes. If we lose 513.5, we turn weaker. If we break past 515.6, we turn stronger. In my opinion, I'm open-minded, so make sure you're prepared for anything, but I am leaning a bit more in favor of this trying to push hard because of these wicks, and also because of the option chain. I do lean a bit more in favor of this trying to get a rebound, pushing past 516.5 to at least 517 again. So just to be safe, let's see if we get that bounce. These wicks right here do give me some faith in that, but I'm going to be watching to see if we get a confirmation breakout from here, just to be safe, okay? So make sure you remember that. We have something very similar developing on the QQQ. If we're bearish on the triple Q with this bearish wedge-like structure, you want to see this thing basically fall all the way down to about 438. If we lose that, a bigger drop is going to be coming to 436. If we're bullish and we bounce, you're going to be watching 440 as resistance. If we break this, 442 is coming next. In my opinion, the QQQ had a very interesting structure. We have a wick here, a wick here, and a massive wick that formed right here, which makes me think, could they be getting ready to push the market back up? Is that the reason why they dropped the markets today? They're just getting ready for it. We'll have to wait and see. If we end up getting a bounce from here, we could be looking for a pushback up to 440 plus. So watch and see if that ends up being the case. So that being said, if you are bearish and you see kind of like a head and shoulders like structure, we want to see it basically get a confirmed break below supports to get back down to like 434. So watch your levels just to be safe on this thing, but I am kind of suspicious of these wicks, which makes me think it might try to push up. Just to be safe, we'll wait and see. What else is going to be important is Nvidia. Now, here's something else that could help the QQQ. Nvidia has this large falling wedge-like structure. It's getting tighter and tighter. If we break past 885, I think that's going to be our confirmation of a big push back up to 900 plus, and this thing could bounce. If we keep selling off and we lose 862, I think this thing could start selling off to the 850 area. Now, with this falling wedge-like structure, there's a very good chance that this may try to break out. So watch for that just to be safe, and we'll see how it ends up going. But with that being said, with this big gap to fill on Nvidia, there's a big gap right here that's unfilled. There's a good chance that this might try to break out of the falling wedge and try to push higher. So watch just to be safe for confirmation. But the current pattern is bullish on Nvidia. If this gets a breakout, this could help the QQQ. Additionally, with Apple also has a nice cup and handle like structure. So if you go back right here, you will see that Apple has a cup and a handle-like structure. Now, we also are forming a pennant. If we break out above 174, we could be pushing for 175.75. If we lose 172.5, we could be sneaking down to 170.9. With this cup and handle forming, there's a good chance I might try to push higher, so we'll see if that ends up being the case. So I really hope we end up getting that breakout, but we need to see it break 174 for confirmation. We got to break this resistance. We were very close to this, or we rejected directly at this 1, 2, 3, 4, like 6, 7 times, guys. So not the best of signs for Apple, but I want to see this thing try to break 174. If it breaks this could help spine the market push. We also have this gap to fill. The cup and handle is a real possibility, but we need confirmation just to be safe. All right, guys. So that is it for the main 5 we always go over. Let's talk about some more stocks out there before I conclude this video. So what am I seeing from technicals? Once again, for Rivian, I'm seeing potential for this thing to try to bounce. We have to try to break above 11 and 11.3. If we do so, 11.8 could be coming. There is a strong possibility it's going to try, but we need confirmation first for that bounce to try to get back to these higher levels. The 30-minute does show potential. I want to see if it could try to get back above 11.34. If it does so, we could push higher. For SoFi, if SoFi breaks 7.13, watch 7.25. If that breaks, we could push higher towards 7.5. There is also a possible inverse head and shoulders like structure, but we have to hold above 7. If we lose 7, we turn bearish. If we hold above, there is potential for us to push to 7.25. For Supermicro, I said yesterday it might reject off 1200. Lo and behold, we got the rejection, exactly as predicted. Now we're in a position where we're approaching very closely to the 50 EMA, but the last time we touched it, we got a big bounce. So I think somewhere between the low we have right here at 1100 and around 1089, we might see some strong support. So it might test this and try to bounce. If it loses this, it starts sinking to 1000. In my opinion, it might come down a little lower and we might see a bounce if we get a bounce off the 50 EMA. For Palantir, we look kind of bearish. If we keep selling off, I think it's possible this thing comes all the way down towards, let me just double check this. The imbalance right here at 24 and then 23.5 might sink a little bit more, and then we'll see if we bounce or not. We also have ARM. I forgot to talk about this one. We're still range bound. We're going to be watching resistance at 132. We have support at 130. It might try to break 132 to start pushing. I'm seeing some life, but just to be safe, watch for confirmation. For the IWM Russell 2000, there is some potential for this thing to bounce. It has to hold above 200, the 200 EMA. So the red line right here, if we bounce off this, we're going to be looking for 203 plus. I do see some potential, but I have to see a follow-through move. We have to see this thing try to get back above our 5 EMA, 203, and then this thing is going to start pushing up again. But we have to get that bounce off the 50 EMA. If we fail, it's going to start sinking. I'm hoping we get that bounce. I do lean a bit towards that. Microsoft looks bullish. It's going to be retesting 427 most likely, and then 430. The chart is still very strong. To turn bearish, you want to see it lose 420. It does not look like that's going to happen. The chart looks very strong to me. So long as there's no bad news, it could push higher. AMD may retest 184 and then 180.25. If we bounce off 180.25, we could try pushing back up to 185 plus. If we end up losing this 184 area and 180.25, we turn bearish. The chart looks bearish. It might sink to either 184 or 180.25. And watch to see if we bounce off one of those levels. It still could do that. Not seeing much for anything else. We have the VIX. The 4-hour is looking kind of strong as it's trying to hold to the 20 EMA. So this is still holding up. But I do see a little concern with the VIX. I just want to say that, wait, hold on. I think this chart didn't update. Hold on a second, guys. Hold on. This might not be the right chart for the VIX. I just realized that. There we go. This is the chart for the VIX. So this did not actually update. So this is a mistake I just made in this for a second. On the 30 minutes time frame, the VIX is actually, it kind of pushed up. Now it's starting to drop a bit. If we lose 14.23, it's going to be sinking down lower. So watch and see if you get that break or not. And this is what the chart should have looked like. I made a small mistake. I'm sorry about that. If we lose 14.11, then this thing could start sinking. So watch for that carefully. If we hold 14.11, we could bounce. Overall, I'd be a little bit careful with this because it's trying to reject on the 4-hour. If it comes down lower, this could be because of the market bouncing. Now, the dollar is pushing, but watch this. The dollar index is approaching 103.52. This is going to be the 200 EMA. If we break past this, this would be bearish for the markets. If we reject off this resistance, we're going to sink back down. The last time we touched this 200 EMA, we rejected. So there's a risk that this is going to reject and the market will bounce. So I'm seeing some possibilities of that. For Coinbase, this is still, it's been downtrending for quite some time, but now it's trying to fight for its 50 EMA. So watch 237 as a key zone. If we break past this, we could be pushing back up to 247. If we reject off this, we're going to be coming back down. It's trying to fight, so I'm seeing some potential for a bounce, but let's see if we get a follow-through move tomorrow. We might get a bounce on Coinbase. For Google, we look bullish. This will likely try to push higher. It might retrace and retest 143, but then I could see a push for 147. So it might come down a bit and start pushing up for 147. The chart looks bullish on Google. For Amazon, this is looking pretty good. It's been strong, but we're approaching some tough resistance at 180. So it might come down a bit to 178 and start pushing for 180. Might reach 180 before we see some tough resistance. So we'll see what happens. And it's trying to invalidate the head and shoulders. It actually invalidated this. This was a trap set for REITs. So it didn't really get much of a follow-through move. So I told you to watch 172. If we lost this in the past, it would have, sank very, very low. But we didn't lose that support. We didn't get the confirmation of a loss off this head and shoulders. So sometimes these are traps that tend to fool retail. So it looks bullish. Look for 180 on Amazon and watch resistance. Meta on the 4-hour time frame is showing some weakness, but we're going to be watching to see if we get a big reaction here. So watch 488 as a key level and 484. Our support's at 490, 488, and then 484. If we start pushing higher, watch 494 as resistance. If we break that, we turn back up. As of right now, Meta's looking a little bit weak compared to the market. We need to get back above 494 to turn bullish. Otherwise, we have a double top-like formation, and there's a risk of this dropping lower. Technicals do look a bit more bearish on Meta for now. Anyways, that is it for the video, guys. Hopefully this video was insightful. Tesla's been dropping very hard, but we just hit 160. I am hoping we get a bounce so long as there's no bad news. As long as we don't get a very bad piece of news, Tesla could bounce, in my opinion. But just to be safe, we have to see a follow through move. We have to see this falling wedge fall, the falling wedge play out for Tesla. So we'll see if we end up getting that. So let's see if we get that bounce, and make sure you watch this wedge. Can Tesla get a breakout? Can Tesla get it? We could see a bounce if the market holds up and if Tesla does not get too much bad news, too much major bad news. I want to clarify that, because bad news itself is not everything. Sometimes major bad news is what could cause us to drop. As long as there's no major bad news, there is potential from a technical standpoint for Tesla to try to push back above 165 plus and start pushing higher. All right. So with that being said, thank you for listening. Let's see if the market gets a squeeze with all these puts expiring. It's going to be a crazy day. Do what you have to do, guys, and I'll see you guys very soon on the next one. Thank you. Tesla to the moon, because the long term is very bright despite the short term downside we've been seeing. The same can be said about SPY and other tickers out there. So the long term is still bright. Don't worry, guys. Stay calm, cool, and collected. And I'll see you guys very soon tomorrow. Thank you again, and peace out.